Live already.
Yeah, no, I just went ahead and went live as I put away, as you said, Easter candy or whatever, my candy treats. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another live episode of Positive Filter. I think at this point we have like a mini series. I'm joined by one of my favorite guests. At this point, I'm just gonna call him co-host, like infrequent co-host of the podcast, Mike and Mike, the two Mikes.
Hold on, I think they got that branded. We can't use Mike and Mike. We got to use something else.
How about
we get a cease and assist on that?
How about two black mics?
Two black mics. I can dig that. Two black mics.
Two black mics. Two black mics. Like two alphas and a Q. And so we're back. I think it's been a while. So one of the ways I wanted to start off is I think I'm going to go back at when was our last time together? I'm looking at all our videos. It must have been.
It was your 200th, I believe.
Wow, yeah, 200. So that was 22 weeks ago. That's what it says. So,
oh, wow.
I don't know what that. What's that? Quick math. Almost 6 months.
Yeah. Because 50 is 52 in a year. So yeah, close about four and a half. Yeah.
So 4.5 months. Quite a lot has happened. So for the listeners or the viewers, I like to start out with you two. What has happened in 4 months of significance that you want to share in your lives? I know we could talk about the news, but I'm talking about for you guys.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. Man. Age before beauty, brother.
Man, dude, so much has happened, man. I think this might be this is brand new information. I haven't even shared this with everybody in my circles, but I actually applied to and was accepted into a doctorate program.
Congratulations.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Education Policy and Leadership program at American University. So that's been the center of my attention over the past few months. I'm super excited. I'm trying to I haven't shared it on social media. We could talk about protecting your peace in social media later.
Yes, we're going to.
But I haven't shared it in a lot of spaces because you just can't share everything with everybody in the same kind of way. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'm sharing it here because I feel like, for the three of us, I feel like we have like a relationship. We're going to push each other. We're going to, we understand as men, as fathers, as Black men, like the challenges of doing something for yourself, like all that stuff that we've talked about before. But I'll just stop there and share like that. That's a big, something that's happened to me in the last few months.
Well, speaking into existence, I can't wait to call you Dr. Andrews. It's probably better than Dr. Phil. Maybe that's the reason why I didn't do it.
Right.
I'm not. I don't know. But that's quite exciting.
Yes.
And obviously that's major. So, and we're going to talk about that too as we talk about protecting our peace. But one of the things I say before I talk to Mike D about what's going on with him is that I was going to say this already. Is that for those we have not physically met in person. Even me and Mike Andrews, but with that bond, I will say that even in a virtual space or online or phone calls, me and you talking, I will say that you are a true friend, and it's also really, and you too, Mike Dorsey, is that it's shown me even during COVID, regardless of how we view relationships, and I don't know, I'm not maybe saying the new normal or not, but there is authenticity in friendships and relationships, even for people that have not met physically. But I think it's easier, though, because we're not just pen pals, where we get to see each other, at least in a Zoom space. So I don't know, I'm just like, you sharing that made me feel like, dang, that's my friend's good news, So I think that's great to say that. So that's all. But go ahead, Mike D. What's some update for you before you go on a tangent?
No gems. No, ain't no tangent, no gems. I think that's so important because you pointed out the fact that we have a legit relationship and have never physically been in the same room together. Like it's, you know, it's really an interesting thing, because I was talking to my wife about that very recently, how, you know, I have really tight people that I talk to regularly, right? That we share good stuff with and all. We've never physically met. I've done business with guys. I mean, we've made some money together, never physically met. Like, I mean, we've never been in the room together. And it's so interesting that historically speaking, we tend to romanticize the methodology, right? Like, how do you build friendship? Like it used to be, you had to have a couple beers together. You had to go to a couple games. You had to do that. And I think because of, you know, necessity breeds innovation or whatever, because of the necessity of distancing and all of that, but then also not necessity, the access of us being able to connect. Because I'm in Tennessee, you're in Virginia, and then Mike, you're in North Carolina or the DC?
North Carolina. Yep, North Carolina.
You see what I'm saying? It's just like, it actually opens us up. So we no longer are just limited to the people in our geographic area. I mean, I don't know. When you were saying that, it just really resonated with me. But quickly, as far as like, you know, updates and whatnot, for me, pretty much a lot of the same stuff, just more of it. As far as like interviews, you know, we episode 212 of Black Fathers Now dropped yesterday on Monday. So continuously doing that. Really had some dope interviews thus far. A few other ones already in the tank that are really, really popping. And Mike Andrews, we got to get you on Black Fathers Now at some point soon too.
Yes, sir, man. I've been seeing your episodes dropping like clockwork, man. It's so inspiring, straight up. Like it's really inspiring.
I appreciate it, man. So been doing that, staying up on it, really diving into personal development coaching. That's really who I am. So like, if you hear me introduce myself as Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, and Double Down on You is my personal development protocol. And so really doing a lot of that on the back end and really hyper focusing on Black men, as we are the ones who need personal development. I mean, most of us have identity issues, and that's something that we really have to unpack, identify, but then also get to a point in which we can really hyper focus on that and then be the best version of ourselves, so that we can then ultimately give the world the best version. So really doing a lot more work in that space. Little side note, so been doing a little bit of acting as well too. So
I see that. Yeah.
So I've done a few of the shows recently, some of the crime dramas on TV ones, like the Fatal Attractions and ATL.
Oh yeah,
I see that show.
And there's another.
I was like, you about to have an IMDb page.
Yeah, look, hey, it's coming. I got a few credits. But a few of those have popped. They actually got another show coming out called Sins of the City. I was in a couple of episodes of that too. And but yeah, so actor. Oh man, you know, so just kind of playing with a few things there, but man, literally just personal development coaching continuously with Black Fathers Now, pushing content out there, you know, kind of rebranding a little bit and keeping it moving. So outside of that, I mean, you know, husband, father, you know, the usual that we all got going on. That's like a default, you know what I'm saying? Because that's all day, every day. But that's pretty much the update.
So one quick question, awesome, as in you're down in Georgia and Atlanta. And I want to do a spin, you know, we'll go into our main topic, but I'm just very curious, like, you know, obviously Atlanta has a big acting scene, right? So how is that?
I'm in Tennessee. Actually, yeah. And I'll tell you, So I'll tell you, so
involved with that.
So it's very interesting. So Knoxville, HGTV is actually here. So Scripps Network is here in Knoxville. Yeah. And so there's a lot of ancillary stuff around Scripps Networks here, you know, HGTV, you know, Food Network, all of that stuff, they kind of hub. But then you have these production companies, and one of the production companies is a company called Jupiter Entertainment. And Jupiter Entertainment is actually the production team for just about all those crime drama TVs that show up on TV One and all, you know, everything. He Shot My Mama, For My Man, Baby Daddy's Best Friend. all of those shows are typically produced by Jupiter Entertainment, and Jupiter Entertainment is based in Knoxville, Tennessee. So even shows like ATL Homicide filmed here in Knoxville. And so I signed with an agency here locally, and they do a lot of the casting. And, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes these are lookalike type roles. And so they're looking for brothers to play some of these things. And I'm kind of like, it's not too many of us in Knoxville. So that opens up this window, you know, for opportunity. Because a lot of the cast that end up being Black do come from Atlanta, to your point. So there's a lot of people that come up from Atlanta to play, you know, in those those episodes or whatnot. So yeah, so that's how that that thing came. And actually, my kids were in an episode last week, the season 11, episode 1. My kids were the kids from the episode, so that was kind of fun to see them. Yeah.
Well, one is I know that you're from. I got the Georgia thing in my head.
Yes, I'm from Georgia. Yeah. But I live in Tennessee right now.
And then two, I think it's just interesting because I work with students, and now it's a great way to say, okay, one thing I want to say, if you're listening and you're a student interested in the arts, realize that there are different pockets. Like I was never familiarized. Like in my mind, when you're saying you're on shows, I already went down to like Peachtree production studio, you know, the Peachtree one. That but there's pockets where you can make a lane in different places across the United States. So if you're listening, if you're a student watching or you're interested in arts, there's something you can do in Tennessee. There's different pockets. And I learned something new, but trying to open your window of, I need to chase my dreams of getting into production. Well, guess what? Go to Tennessee as well. You know, maybe.
Well, check this out. I want to add to that because is even what I mentioned. We at times romanticize the methodology of getting somewhere, right? Yeah. And so we think if you want to be an actor, I got to move to Hollywood, or now it's I got to move to Atlanta or whatever. Yeah. But to your point, you know, because of we've built strong relationships, the three of us, and have never physically been in the same room. The thing is the same thing with production. I mean, you do different things, and it's kind of like musicians. They can put albums together and never be in the studio together. They send their part, and the engineer in Wisconsin somewhere is mixing it all up, and then they drop in a beat from Atlanta that's going to do that, and they add somebody else to chop it up, and they've never physically been together, and they got a Grammy on this song that they've never physically seen each other perform before. You know, so to your point, man, we can't romanticize how it was. We got to look at the opportunities, but then also find a pathway. Sometimes the pathway of least resistance, where you might have minimal competition to get your foot in the door. So
that's
I'm gonna jump right into our subject. So I wonder if I can share a screen. Let me see, share, and then share screen, and so this is where the conversation started. I don't know if people can zoom in, but I remember this is where the protecting your peace. And so I remember I dropped this Facebook comment, I guess a couple of days ago. And I was like, in regards to protecting your peace and this connection with us and how we keep each other accountable, as Mike Ace said earlier, that I just dropped a comment. I was like, man, I cannot. There's another instance where I'm like, I'm checking out. I'm checked out. I am not plugged into the inundation of media, and I knew it. Mike, you was on it. Mike D was on it and said blah blah, and you dropped. I know you always come through with a message, and then we go back and forth with this dialogue, and I was like, you know what? Beyond just having a conversation about it, we need to talk about it, and I think that's where we came about protecting our peace. So obviously, I shared the screen real quick, but I'll unshare. And I want to just talk about, particularly for us, when I put that out there about not watching Derek, I can't even pronounce his last name correct, and I don't really care to. I don't want to watch the trial live. I'm not doing it. But I know so many of my coworkers, especially a lot of my Black coworkers, are in group chats, saying, I'm watching it today. Even when I was on a meeting with a few coworkers, they had it on in the background, and they talked to me about it. I was like, I'm not watching it, and I just felt, me. Sometimes I'm the type of person. Maggie's like, you just post a lot. I was like, I don't care. Sometimes I just share these thoughts, and it for me, it helps me drive dialogue. So I want to start with you, Mike D. When I put that out there that I don't want to watch this, what called you to say like I want to respond? Or you have a similar or what draw you to share your thoughts on that post?
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I had just posted, I think the day before you posted that, and it was in response to that, the George Floyd case, or the case involving the killer of George Floyd. And it's the whole concept, and it made me really just get reflective on the concept of, watching the play-by-play. If you're not being paid to watch the play-by-play of something as an analyst, you're being entertained by this, because otherwise there's really no point. So it made me think about sports. We watch sports that we enjoy. We watch the play-by-play. We listen to the color analysts. We listen to the commentary. We get on social media. We do all of that because we're being entertained. And I think some of us really have to check ourselves on the fact of whether or not we're actually being entertained by what's going on. See, that's a question I don't think a lot of people ask, because if you're watching a play-by-play of this, and this is something that you have zero impact on the outcome, right? All this is going to do is open up this wound and just basically dive into this trauma even more. What's the point of going in and out unless you are an analyst, unless it's your job to do it and you have to come, on some news channel or whatnot to do so. And so for me, on a personal level, I think it really also comes back to the notion of knowing who you are. And for me, I'm a person who's visual, and stuff gets ingrained in my mind. It's funny, like we were talking about acting on these crime drama shows. I've had some of the family members that are like, Mike, it's funny. I like what you're doing, but I can't watch that show before I go to bed. Because those crime drama shows, those reenactments of murders and all of that, people know themselves and they're like, I can't do that because then I'll be up all night thinking about how some dude got killed. And so I think it really even goes into this whole case with George Floyd, how we have to understand who we are. And if this is something that's really going to resonate and stay there, you don't need, just wait on the outcome and then respond when that happens. But you got to know yourself. Maybe some people don't, it doesn't bother them. But for me, I don't even know what's going on with the case. I mean, once the verdict comes, then I'll, pay attention and respond accordingly.
So I'm in the middle. So you're saying you're going to wait for the outcome. And I was more like, I'll get like a bite size, like a snippet, I listen to NPR or public radio and they just give me 10 minutes worth of conversation about it. I don't know. Okay, so we're obviously in different dialogue. Is that this is me and we can have some counter auction, but like I just want to know that like when I'm talking to students or just working with people that I'm involved in a conversation enough to not say something that is misinformed, and so and particularly now that I really feel a calling to support the Black students at Mason that I work at. I don't know. I just feel like if I'm going to be the advisor for the NAACP on campus, I just want to be socially aware of what's going on so that I'm informed enough. Now, am I out there marching or out there, full justice warrior mode? Maybe not, but I just want to be able to know, just read a little bit, know a little bit about how maybe this officer's supervisor said it wasn't appropriate, just like enough, but like I don't want to be glued to the TV. But that's also me, because I also just want to have conversations with people, and when I had these conversations, I just like, oh yeah, I heard about that too, or I just feel like I can be involved in a conversation and not just be completely way off. Like if I was watching and they're like, did you watch the game? And they say, yeah, that guy scored 2 touchdowns and we're talking about basketball. I want to at least know the general context of the field and what they're playing.
But like if somebody says like, man, did you watch the hockey, the whatever cup did they do for hockey?
Yeah, the Stanley Cup,
I'm like, dude, like dog, I don't watch hockey, man. And I'll be straight up. I'm like, dude, I don't watch hockey. And so to your point, I get what you're saying as far as being support, but part of my support is I'm straightforward and say, look, I protect my peace in the sense of I'm not even fooling with the case. I know what happened. And to me, that's what was important. The verdict, once the verdict comes out, I have no influence on that. This is just me. My personal perspective on it is I would just share with it. Look, you have to know who you are. Now, if you can handle all of that, cool. But for me, I don't need to get stuck in that. And I would even encourage, if you know yourself and you don't need to, follow my lead, right? But if you can and you need to, if you need to support people in a different capacity, I don't judge anyone if they literally are glued to watching every, scenario, but that's just me. That's just, maybe I'm approaching.
And I like that. I like that people have different barometers on where they're at. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm more leaning towards the side of Mike Dorsey. I haven't even watched the news that has talked about the case. I am this go round, because it feels like this is the second round, right? This is the second round of George Floyd. This is the second round of us going through quarantine, right? This, starting the second year, right?
Second wave. Yep.
Second wave.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe, and I'm not even a conspiracy theorist on that level, but I'm really starting to believe that the timing of all of this, along with how they're showing it on TV, it's open, the courtroom is open, they got cameras. I feel like it's some sort of setup. I feel like Mike mentioned, if you're watching it and you're not an analyst, it's entertainment. Okay, that's one side, being entertained. The other side is who is trying to capitalize off of our emotion, right? Like somebody, and I don't want to be, philosophical, but I feel like, the media corporations, the news, the commercials, all of those agencies and billion-dollar companies are actively trying to buy our eyes, and through our eyes and our vision and what we're seeing, they are able to create emotions in us, create emotions from nowhere, right? Because we're already mad. We already cried for George Floyd. We marched, we burned shit down. We've done all of that already, right? So regardless of the verdict, which, I mean, I have friends that are cops that have been telling me yo, don't be surprised when, the end of this thing, if you see that, we've already been through that. We shed our tears. We've all done literally 8 minutes and 46 seconds of moments of silence in different spaces over the last year. I'm not doing that for me. I've said my prayers. I prayed for George and his family and his daughter and his fiancés. And why? For what? And I'm not even making it personal, like me, you, Mike, Phil, I'm thinking why do the collective, they need our attention in this way? And what might we be missing by focusing our attention on these? Something ain't right. I think it's a dastardly trick.
Well, I think I watch a lot of documentaries. I think that, I don't know if we're the only country, but we have entertainment sized or commercialized court forever. We have made court
from OJ, right?
Yeah, from OJ. Yeah. There you go. I was about to say, and so I when you said that, that's what sparked in my mind was not the mysterious day, but more I guess in regards to filming and having cameras live in courts, that this has been a phenomenon where now we have lawyers that when I think they're entertainment lawyers, they know how to wear different suits. And I was watching a documentary where the guy was I make my opening statements, but I talk like I'm talking to the camera. And I was whoa, that's crazy. This
celebrity.
Lawyer, celebrity lawyers, and they prepare their court cases, and they have media teams where they're not only will they say how does the jury feel, but they'll do polls how does the American people. I go back to that too. So I do feel when you're saying who's being entertained, I do feel there is a level of when you put cameras and play-by-plays into the legal system, it's not just law anymore. It's law and almost gladiatorship. We're watching
entertainment.
We're watching. We're waiting for, but not just the emperor to go like this. My hammer like this. We're waiting for a juror to do that, and we either applaud or we riot. They go back. Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's it's also the creation of celebrity. So you mentioned the OJ case was kind of that first one that was kind of the jump off to it all. And then you think Johnny Cochran became a household name after OJ, right? Who is the most famous family in entertainment right now?
Kardashians.
The Kardashians.
Who is their father?
Exactly.
Where did he get famous from? You see what I'm saying? So like, so when you look at it, everything again, that's why I was doing the whole, the money sign there. It's like everything is about creating this personal brand, and this is my jump off. I'll take this case because it's going to give me national publicity, and then I can go and take that, to my next act on my show or my this or my that, or new celebrity clients because of the publicity, or I can become a consultant on the various news channels now. If you look at it, everybody on any of your favorite, what you call them, cable news channel is a former, some kind of defense attorney, former prosecutor, former politician, it's like the second act. Like after you get out of politics, what do? You go work for a lobbying firm, you get on the payroll of this and whatever. After you get some notoriety doing some case, you can now go and make, 7 figures a year as a contributor on name your favorite, cable news network. So,
what also made me think about all of this is entertainment piece. And as we exited, I told this to my wife so many times, whenever you see like a salacious news story, like the craziest news story you can imagine, like, a car jumped the curb and ran over a whole fleet of like the most crazy stuff, right? I always stop and I think, like, what month is it? Is it February? Is it May? Is it September? Because whenever you get these crazy news stories, including like mass shootings, just look at the history. And I'm not even on some, Omar John, like Dr. Umar type stuff. This is just like
Umar John. You about to get a doctorate, though.
I'm not.
You about to get a doctorate.
Look at where these things happen, the timing of the year, and they're always aligned with sweeps month on TV. Like they always align with like February where the new shows come out. And then in, September, October, there's always a push. Around November, December, it's always a crazy mass shooting. And it's like, okay, what we saw, right? If we want to even connect it back a few months back, we've seen what's happened since Trump has left office, right? Like we've seen the media companies, like the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the news stations, like they don't know what to do. Like they're figuring out like, how can we incite the people that were so angry at Trump, with Trump,
their revenue is dropped.
Their revenue, they're looking for stories, and they're looking for stories so they can sell commercials. They want to sell commercials. They need our eyes, right? So it's like, what are they willing to do to get our attention? And it works. Look at any story that comes out. It's wild, salacious. It's hot for 30 seconds, and then you never hear about it again.
Yes, I was about to say that. Okay, so what's the difference between knowing that this is a saturation of marketing and media, and then on the instance of just being informed on news events? You feel me? Like I don't know. It's just like, but I'm not going to live in a hole. I'm not going to be a hermit. I'm not going to completely plug from the world and move to Alaska. I'm still plugged into a community. I'm still plugged into a country. I mean, whatever. We can go from macro to this world to micro. So how much do we plug in? And this is in regards to our piece. How much do we plug in to feel connected to people and know what's going around us? Awareness. But how much do we let's say, this is it. This is my line. I don't need to be more plugged into this, because I don't want to be fed, as you say, messages and I guess propaganda and all that stuff. Because I always think about that too, like in regards to propaganda and messaging, like how you can get the average day American to do, or average person to do the most crazy stuff, and then you realize that they were just brainwashed or something, So that's my question: how do we plug in, but like literally say, this is the boundary. I'm plugged in, but I see that this is bad news, or this is trash, or this is shaping me in a way that I don't want to be shaped.
I would say, honestly, it starts first with awareness, right? But the challenge is, and I was doing this as you were talking, because it's all meshed together. Like it's really no line. I mean, in everything, it's even to the point where it's a documentary on Netflix. Was it the social? I forgot what it's called. It's called the was it the social? You know what I'm talking about?
I have it queued up. I haven't watched it.
About social media, how it's
well
engineered at you, right?
Yeah, it's basically
dilemma. The
social dilemma. That's it. I'll tell you. When you watch it, it's going to do a mind screw on you because it's legit, because they're pulling people who legit worked at the major social media companies and tell you, look, yes, we are manipulating you. We are doing this because we know the dopamine hit. We know how to do this. And I'll even take it further. If you're in business, I mean, you know, we all have podcasts and the selling things. I mean, you got pixels on your website, which somebody goes to something, then they go to this, and then that follows them. And then they go from this to that. Or what's crazy is every app that you have on your phone, you give it permission for the voice, right? So we're talking about stuff. I'll guarantee you, we open up our phone, something that we talked about is going to pop up on our phone at some point, right? And we think that, oh, I just thought about that. No, you talked about it an hour ago. It's even been times when my phone has been off and I've said stuff, and all of a sudden I turn my phone on and go to a site, and that thing that I spoke about is there. So if you are really, really honest about it and we understand it, there really is no line, because if you choose to be in, you're basically in the matrix. Right. Yeah. And you really don't know where that line is, because you think they're your thoughts. But the reality is, are they your thoughts? Or was it something that you came across here that was a result of a conversation you had a week ago, that was from a pixel on a website that you visited 3 hours ago, that was from a website that picked up the IP address from something to this to that, and you think that's your thought? But the reality is, no, I'm not really thinking. You know what I'm saying? And so to your point, I think it really becomes, if you're in, or you're completely unplugged. And I think that's where we have to have moments of disconnect, where we are not plugged in, where we're out walking, we leave the phone in the car, we go on vacation to an island, and the only time we check in Wi-Fi to check on the kids, 2 or 3 times a day. But outside of that, we're completely disconnected. We have to have those moments, or else. And I'll just put that, or else ... So I don't really think there is a line. I think once you're in, and you just don't even realize you're in, or you're out and you living on a mountain somewhere, living off the grid with solar panels.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's what.
No, I've been thinking about this. Even prior to us having this conversation, is like, what if we look at all of the major crime stats, right? All of the major, like, the stats that reflect like how crazy and how bad the world is, like all of those stats are down for the most part over the last like 40 years, right? Like violent crimes has gone down, drugs are down, kidnappings, all those, like rape is down, like all these things are down, right? But based on the world that we live in and how we're engaging in the world, it doesn't feel that way, right? And I feel like we're talking about the business of keeping us in this mindset of like, oh my God, things are crazy. And I thought about it. Why do we feel that way? And I still think that I don't think humans have evolved at the speed of our technology, even though we're developing the technology, right? No. I feel that like humans aren't meant to digest information in the way that we're digesting information. We're not meant to know all of the news. Like
Moore's Law. Are you familiar with Moore's Law?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like we can't, it's like pouring into, a jug that's already full, right? And what happens with that information after that? I think once our cups are full, it turns into disease. It turns into stress. Anxiety. It turns into anxiety. That's why everybody right now, and I don't know if this is about this topic today, but everybody's focused on therapy. Everybody needs therapy. Everybody has anxiety. And I hear you. I get it. And I don't believe you. And I don't believe that everybody.
Come on with it. We got to go.
I was about to say, and my counter argument to that is that not that I don't believe, but I think it's exacerbated. Like you do like this. If you were a doctor and say, rather than prescribe a pill or prescribe this, I bet you if you say, yo, I'm super anxious, have a lot of anxiety, I would say, okay, go for walks and don't look at your phone for a month and see if you're still that. Like, I think that agreeing to your point that some of the symptoms of anxiety has been shaped by this.
How we consume information.
But check this out though, and I agree that the way that it's delivered is different now, and it's interesting. Even in the medical community, it is moving more to preventative versus appeal for this, right? Like that's the reason it hasn't been that way before is it's been hard to bill, it's hard to quantify results, it's hard, so insurance companies weren't gonna pay unless you prescribe something, so they got to prescribe something, right? So it's just it's been that way before, but it's starting to move into this holistic model. But one of the things that Mike was mentioning on the notion of therapy, I think it's like when things get more intense, you do need more outlets, right? And in a lot of instances, therapy is not some woo-woo thing. Sometimes it's just unpacking what's going on. So technically, I'm using air quotes here, technically, some people don't need an actual clinical therapist, right? Sometimes people just need a homeboy or a homegirl they can just unload to and get it out of your mind. Because like you mentioned, when your brain gets full, they need to unleash and unload. But I will say, and you have to caution, especially with public forums, and we all have public spaces and we're considered thought leaders and all of that. This is not to say that you should not seek therapy. And sometimes it's good to start there to realize whether or not you need somebody clinical or not, because some of us have some things that we've just been covering up and we really need to get down to the root of and uncover. And you need somebody who's trained in clinical fashions to get us there. But everybody doesn't need that. But everybody does need some type of release. And you got to get this out because your head is only, I got a big head, but my head is only so, and you better not laugh. Your head is only so y'all laughing. Come on. Your head is only so big. So therefore you can only hold so much. And if you fill it up, what's going to happen? It's either going to blow or it's going to come out. Right. And so you got to get it out before it either blows or comes out when you don't want it to.
Yeah. And I agree. And I agree wholeheartedly about the increase in anxiety and depression, but more so as a symptom of what you're consuming, similar to the uptake in obesity, and the uptake in other things, consumption. And I would say to your point, Mike Andrews, is I totally agree. Like if someone says, yo, I am having panic attacks, I'm having a hard time. And like I said, I'm not a clinician. One would be like, do you talk to someone? But I bet you, some of the things that you do, you would see that even if it's underlyingly chemical, like clinically depressed, that we have exacerbated that clinical depression with the world. Like a clinical depression person throwing themselves into an environment that is trash, or an underlying person that maybe had an issue with anxiety, but now is exacerbated because of this, and they're way plugged in. They're not protecting their peace.
Exactly.
And I totally agree with that. I think this world is exacerbated, and I love that what you reshaped it was that we have not kept up with technology. I remember, I just think I go back to my childhood and almost a childlike mindset where, not saying ignorance is bliss, but just like I did not know the dangers of the world as a child, right? But also with this, like I'm seeing someone get killed in Minnesota in a different community, but I'm seeing it instantly now. I'm seeing it live streamed, or I'm seeing this. Kids didn't have to worry about it. So I do agree with you that this technology has advanced to the point that it's inundating us with stuff that's scary at a rate that we're not able to, I guess, emotionally handle, because you're right, the technology is going further than, I guess, our intellectual or human emotional capacity. But
you threw something, and remember earlier you were asking, it's kind of like, where's that line though, right? And so it's kind of like when you get a phone, every so many years, you got to update your phone, or you got to get a new one, or the technology is outdated, or you got to go from Microsoft this to Microsoft that. I mean, it's so many different things that happen. And so like once you jump in, you have to literally flow down the stream with these innovations, or you're going to be stuck and you're not going to be compatible. That word there. You're not going to be compatible with everything else around you because it's going to move. I heard a guy say years ago, innovation does not give a flying blankety blank who you are. Think innovation is going to innovate no matter what. So either you're going to jump on the wave and ride that bad boy, or you're going to stay put. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's a very interesting thing that we have to be mindful of. And it's literally like, are you in or are you out?
Right.
And it's hard to straddle.
And we haven't changed, like human beings, like our biology and the way that our brains work, like haven't really evolved. We haven't evolved in that way. I think that, and this is my very basic theory, is that like technology is helping us evolve, right? Like it's not helping us evolve. It's forcing us to evolve.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's forcing our hands to evolve, and you could almost see and feel it in the country when it happens, right? Like when things are just like so intense and you're like, yo, what's going on? And I think that, you know, we've seen that in quarantine times. Like we've seen like the amount of that's happened emotionally and physically with our bodies in the last year is not normal. Right. But like our bodies, human beings are amazing. Like we will try to normalize it. We'll stabilize all things. Right. But here's the thing I wanted to mention about counseling and why I'm very careful about like say like, oh no, to counseling. Like my master's degree is in counseling. Like at heart, I'm a counselor. Like I think that it's a very important thing. And I get very weary when folks just jump out the porch, like their first thing, you need to go to counseling. Nah, bruh, that's not how it works. Like it's a craze, right? And we know that crazes fade. Like right now, everybody's like, you need to get a Peloton, right? But if I've never walked in my life, like if I've never walked around the block, if I've never done a push-up, and you tell me to get this machine that's $5,000 in my corner, and I
Philip, you call me bougie, and he talking about a Peloton.
I mean, I didn't say I had one, but I do. But still, no. But I'm saying like you can't go from like not walking and being sedimentary. Sedimentary, is that the right word? Sedentary.
So hold on, how you gonna have a Peloton and not know how to say sedentary?
Sedentary, right? Sedimentary is sand, right? Like,
I was about to agree with you. That's how bad I am. I was like, yeah, sedentary.
And both of y'all got Pelotons. What kind of commercial is that?
How you spell Peloton? But like I'm saying, like
don't worry about that. I ain't got one.
You can't jump out there and just jump on the Peloton. Like you gotta work. You gotta work your body into it. And I feel like it's a part of protecting your peace is having an understanding of like what you need, right? Like what I need versus what Mike Dorsey needs versus what Phil needs. And if Phil was telling me to go to counseling, if Mike Dorsey's telling me to go to counseling, and everybody's telling me you got to go to counseling, like that might be putting the cart before the horse is all I'm saying. Like what do I need? Like what is it? Like you said, Mike, outlets. Like what is the outlet? Is my outlet talking to another person one-on-one online or in a room? It might be, but there might be other things that are more impactful, more helpful, like more holistic than just like I'm gonna go be a counselor so I can put on a shirt and say Black men go to counseling. Come on, man. Come on. I see. I'm sorry.
I feel you, and I'll tell you, it's a pendulum swing, right? So it's kind of like, for instance, like as Black folks, you hear a lot of brothers saying, "Oh, king's this, king that, queen this, queen." You know, we're going in that, and it's basically a pendulum swing to the polar opposite of being called the N-word for generations, or the polar opposite of being enslaved for generations, or the polar opposite of being lesser than. So now we got to swing it to the complete other side, and everybody's a king or everybody's a queen. Whereas when you talk to brothers who are from the continent of Africa, you know, they'll let you know that it was only a very few kings, only a few chiefs. The majority of people were not kings and chiefs, right? I mean, it's only a very small, minute people. It's kind of like the president here. You got you know, how many presidents? 40? I don't know how many we done got here. 45, 6? How many? 46?
We're on 46.
Whatever. Yes, okay, we're on 46. So again, you had 46 presidents, right? We can't say yo president, you know, because dude, they only been 46 of them jokers here. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, unless you say president and then you say of like a small chapter, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got it. Awesome.
Titles matter.
but I feel what you're saying in the sense of we can't just do it for the show. It has to be for something. And you said the what do I? As a personal development coach, my whole thing is why. So it's not always the what, it's the why. So it's the what, then the why. What practices do you have in place? And then how are you testing that? It's like a 4-part thing that you kind of go through, because a lot of times we just go to the what. So what is it that I need? What is it that I need? And we don't take a step back and say like, well, why do I need that? Because the reality is you might be a person who needs therapy, but on the flip side, you might just want to get with the wave of everybody else. I just want to have I'm a black man who goes to therapy t-shirt. And it's really not doing anything. I'm just trying to be part of the crowd, which is really not serving a purpose. But the pendulum swinging, maybe that shirt is something that a brother who really needs it sees. And it's like, you know what? He's quote unquote normal and he goes to therapy. Maybe I'll call and go get counseling myself. So I see both sides of it. It's a balance.
Yeah.
But also I agree with you about the Peloton and whatever, is because you could say like, I just need to go walk around the block. That's it. That's my way to start. And for someone, their equivalent is maybe I just need a journal. Like maybe I need to do something internal, or I just need to read books. Like I don't need to go see a therapist. I just need to read books to be more aware of what's going on with me. You know, I totally get all the I think it's the individual thing. Like it almost boils down to where we started this conversation at the beginning, is that we're all in different spaces.
Yes.
And this is individualistic. Like you say, I'm not watching this. Someone said I might watch a little bit. Someone says I'm watching everything. Someone says, in regards to my well-being, I'm going full tilt, t-shirts, books, counseling. I'm going 100% in. And maybe for some guy, it was just admitting to one person, their friend, that I'm not having a good day. That's their one step. And that's for them, that's monumental, because it could be someone rather than just a full therapy. Like they just never talk to one person that's even a trusted loved one or something. So I kind of agree that we I guess it's kind of just keeping up, where we have so much information and resources that we throw it all at everyone at once. And I don't know, it just goes back to like, we just got so much going on, so much that we can get, so much resources that we can talk about.
The only thing I would say is I don't think it's always about doing it as much as it is about access to it, right? And so it's kind of like when you walk into a store, you might not buy everything in the store, but it's cool to walk in a store and realize that, you know, if I wanted to, I could, right? Like, and so I think from the standpoint of therapy, of counseling, of people to talk to, of exercise equipment, of, you know, loving relationships, all of those things, it's like whether you exercise them or not, I think everyone should have access to them. Right. And then it's up to them it's like having tools in your tool belt. Then it's like, okay, if I got a Phillips head screw that I need to tighten up, I'm going to get a Phillips head screwdriver. Right. Whereas most people, or a lot of people, all they got is a hammer. So everything looks like a nail. And so they're just approaching everything with a hammer. And I think it's just the whole notion of having access, whether you take advantage of it or not, you know, that's up to you. I believe, and I'm a firm believer that we should all have access to the full gamut of everything, and we pick and choose as we need based off of the circumstance or situation.
Yeah, I agree.
So you believe we should have full access to all this news and all this stuff, but it's on us to choose if we want it.
Yeah, but it's also about you knowing yourself whether or not you go in that direction. And so a lot of times we don't take that time on the front end to know who we are and know what our triggers are, right? Like for me, again, I see something coming on about the Floyd case, I'm flipping the channel because I'm like, I don't want to get that thing embedded in me. And then I'm sleeping on it and dreaming about it. And then that's impacting how I'm thinking about stuff. That's just me, right? Like, I don't want that, but that's not my business. That's not my world. That's not the world that I live in, nor do I see that as being anything valuable to me right now, because, you know, I don't think that I can't impact the case in any way, shape, or form on a personal level. So, but again, that's just me in my perspective.
I think there's something to Phil and Mike about for men in particular about when you talk about protecting your peace, right? That's the assumption. The assumption is that you know what your peace is and you know where to find your peace. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and like, I don't know.
That's real.
That a lot. Let me speak for myself because that's what I'm doing a lot now. I'm doing this more. I don't want to. I don't want to do this, y'all. No. I don't know. Where different aspects of my piece are. I know where, I know like I like to run. I know that's my piece. I know my family, there's peace, right? But professionally, I'm not sure. Like, socially, I'm not sure, especially now in pandemic. What's going to be peaceful in a social environment, And so I think that before we even can protect our peace, I think we have to identify what our peace is in different scenarios. And that's the part where I feel that men, and if we want to go down a level, or up a level, Black men are at a huge disadvantage, or are just not as, we haven't had the proverbial freedom to sit in our peace, right? Without like fearing for our lives, responding to racism, being whatever, being everything to everybody. I think it's a misnomer that because men are stereotypically more quiet or more reserved or more pulled back from situations, that we're at peace. A lot of the men I know, and I'm speaking for myself in all situations, I'm not at peace, man. I sit with a lot of not anxiety, but just like unsureness, or just angst maybe in different situations. I thought it was me for a long time that I thought I was going to die early. Like in my 20s, I just assumed it wasn't even like, I didn't think about it. I didn't stay up late at night thinking like, oh man, I'm going to die tomorrow. It was just like, if I were to die early, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of the thing. And I talked to, this was early in my 20s, maybe in my mid to late 20s. And I talked to other Black men when I started thinking about the podcast, when I started like talking about Black men's issues, that so many men I talked to had this. It wasn't a fear. It wasn't a fear of death. It was just like, yeah, that's a possibility. Like I could die. You know what I'm saying?
But that right there though, dude. Go ahead, keep on, because that's.
No, I just think I think it's just it's a reality that that Black men have to have faced before, our untimely demise. And I'm not trying to make it morbid. I'm trying to just highlight that we have more work to do as Black men to identify where we can be at peace. Because I feel like generationally, our pops and our uncles and their grandfathers and their dads were in just different times. And that stuff is passed down generationally. I think we're still figuring out. My boy, Phil, our boy Ryan Griffin always says, we're at ground zero. Black men at this stage are at ground zero. We're really just figuring out what it means to be fathers, like for real. We're just figuring out how to make and spend and save our money. We're just figuring out like how to really buy a house. Like, what does that even mean generationally? So I feel like we just have a lot. We're a little bit behind, and I don't even like using deficit language, but we're a little bit behind the 8 ball when it comes to where our peace is.
Dude, you dropped so much there.
I have so much to respond to too.
Go ahead, Phil. You go first. Go, Phil. Go ahead.
The only thing I was about to say, I feel like in a sense, this, I read the Way of the Tao. I just read that recently during this pandemic, and it almost at root of inner peace and all that stuff is that there's no finite too. It's like it's not like a moment, and it could be fluctuating. If that makes like, you say like, finding a nightmare or whatever, but like, who's to say that one moment I'm not at peace or I feel good about myself, the next moment I'm living chaos. it's like it just goes ebbs and flows. There, I can say in my mind, there's times where I legit felt like tranquil and just really for an instant of a moment felt at peace. But then, right, like it doesn't. It's fleeting, and that's where my going. Like none of this stuff is permanent. Like I feel at peace, and I don't. And then another exercise we did it today. I was in a well-being group where it was like, just name a moment, name a time where you're thriving, like you feel like you're thriving. And I can go back to an instance where everything was working on all cylinders. And that's just a couple moments and then it goes away. Just to exemplify that, like, sometimes I'm feeling it. Like I feel like at peace. I feel like I'm thriving. And that's usually my line when someone says, how you doing? I say, I'm thriving and surviving. Some days I'm thriving. I feel like I'm killing it. And some days I'm just feel like I'm surviving it, getting by. And I don't know, just going to that part was that like what I heard, like I had thoughts about that too, like, oh, and I lived in y'all know, like I had upbringing, military parents, I never had immediate danger, but I did have that thought too, as a young Black male, that maybe my life would be shorter for some reason. Which, when you said that, I thought about that. Like, that wasn't the craziest, not like to say like an underlining anxiety. Or
I wasn't scared of it. Yeah.
Or I'm not even saying like going as far as dysthymia or depressed or anxious, but that thought has popped in my head before.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know.
No, it's interesting because, as you say that, it goes back to me back to our conversation earlier regarding influences and inputs and all of those things that embed inside of us that are either knowing or sometimes subconscious, right? And so you think about it, why is it that Black men feel that way? That it's kind of like a celebration. Oh man, we done got to 21 or we done made 25. We're like, wow, dude, I'm 40. Like, yo, what's good? Like, what is it about that? Is it this genetic thing that there's something inside of us from, the DNA that passed down through from previous trauma, which there is lineage, the post-traumatic slave syndrome and all that stuff, things passed down generation to generation at times. But is it that? Or is it all the inputs of the things that we see in which it's young Black men here and young Black men there? I mean, even simple things like we watch Boys in the Hood. We watch Menace to Society growing up. We watch all of these different things. And let me tell you what's even crazier. Check this out. Yeah. We all personally know someone that has been killed, right? Like, somebody personally. What's crazy, a lot of young Black kids, personally know somebody that has, had an untimely, demise, right? When you go to other ethnic demographics, that's not always the case. They might not personally know somebody. They might go their whole teenage years. And I can name off all kind of, in high school, dudes that had met an untimely demise in high school, and then college era. And then after that, it's just like, that I personally knew, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, and I wonder if all of those inputs are things that get embedded into us that we start to then file and say like, there's connection there. It's like, man, that could be me. It's like, I don't, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that thing is part of that input that influences us to think that way, which then gives us this feeling. But then on the flip side, what Mike mentioned about how we're ground zero, part of that is just due to information, right? Like you mentioned, buying houses and building wealth and, getting advanced degrees and starting businesses and entrepreneurial, aspirations and things of that sort. Historically speaking, there's a lot of us from a lineage perspective that didn't have that freedom to think that way. Because it was like, yo, we gotta put food on the table, right? We gotta figure out a way to do this or figure out a way to do that. Keep your head down and survive Jim Crow or survive this or survive that. And they did all of that so that we can have opportunities. And so now we have that freedom and flexibility to think broader. So it's almost like we're starting from ground zero to an extent now, but we also can't discount all the sacrifices and the things that were done prior to us getting here. Even though they might not have had the same, opportunities, they laid the groundwork, and because of what they did, we now have every opportunity in the world to do what it is we're called to do. So I see it all, fellas. Like I see exactly what you all are saying. It's interesting though.
Yeah.
And also the fleeting moments of peace. Like I could say I found peace, but I also agree with you, Mike, that, and this is like where I might contradict myself or whatever. And that's what this I don't care. I'm just talking. But I do agree with you too. There's moments where I found peace in individual circumstances. Like I totally agree with you. There's times where I went at my house, in my home, I found peace. And then I go to my job and there's no peace there. Like I'm unsure if I'm good at it. You said. So I don't know if that fleeting moment of peace is not only internally to my mind, or is also fleeting moments of peace based on the environments that I'm in and situations I'm in. Where, in this moment, in this place, in this space, I feel peace. In this space, I feel peace. At this space, hell no, I feel peace. I feel nothing but bad, and I don't know if that aligns with the protection of our peace is some of that awareness of knowing what spaces as well, being aware of the spaces that are more threatening to your peace. Like, it's like, big. Almost like, you read the threats, right? You're reading the threats. If I went to my home, I know my home, I know the landscape, this is my home. I go to a foreign territory, I'm already looking for threats, which could affect my peace. And the scary part, though, is that even in my home, outside threats can come in to my home through the television or through the phone or through the media or through the Alexa, whatever, is that things can threaten our peace now in our home at a higher rate.
I think, Phil, that like I'm, and this is not where I am. This is where I'm working towards, right? And it is absolutely a journey to. And I know because I remember my mom sharing scriptures with me, and I remember my grandmother. I know that there's scripture in the Bible that aligns with like a mindset of peace as opposed to like individual moments of peace, so that you can have, they talk about peace in the midst of storm and things like that. But like, I'm working towards a peaceful way of being, regardless of the situation that I'm in, right? Like, regardless of how crazy my job is, or how crazy the kids are, or how crazy, whatever, that I can, settle into not even Zen like, but I think that is the power of manhood. In my mind, I think that is what our godly gift and design is for our families, is to be peace, right? And to be, that force to accept the shock, right? Like to accept the blow, right? To accept the win. And everybody else in the house, the kids could go crazy, wife could go crazy, the dog could go crazy. But if you like, the power of manhood is having the ability to maintain something, right? Like to maintain.
I was about to say something. Yeah, the maintain right? Something like, I don't know what that is too. Like,
and that's what I think. I think that like, I think that women are they bring forth life. I think men bring forth peace. That's what our divine calling is.
That.
You know what I'm saying?
That. I like
and
that.
I think that we have it flipped and think like, oh man, they bring war, we bring this, we fight. I don't think that's the case. I think we are here to bring peace.
I agree. Dude, it's funny, like the episode that I dropped yesterday, it was basically, wins and losses are both imposters. And I actually took a stanza from it. Yeah, think about if. Remember, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. Like it was, and so this whole episode, it was a quick episode, but it was the whole concept of both wins and losses are imposters. Yeah. What's the constant is your steady state, which is joy. And it goes back, and it's interesting. This is literally a complete add-on to what you're just saying, or an and to what you just dropped there, Mike, because peace is what we bring to the table. Peace is that steady state, right? You're going to have wins, you're going to have losses. Like Phil was talking earlier, you're going to have good, you're going to have bad. That's why I don't even talk about good and bad days. I talk about good and bad moments, right? Because when you think about the moment, sometimes the day is too much, right? It's the moment. We have to really hyper focus on that moment and don't allow one bad moment to spoil a whole day. But some people say it's a bad day because of a bad moment, or vice versa. If it's a good moment, it's that good moment, and hold on to that because we don't know what's coming down the pipe. You know what I'm saying? But but that whole notion of really, man, and it's funny, I've been really diving back into if and looking at it from a lot of different lenses. And that whole stanza of if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. And what's even funnier, to your point about manhood, Mike, what's the very last stanza of if? And then you'll be a man.
Be a man, my son. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like when you start really, again, as you age and mature and you start looking at these things, because there's even another one, like I've been coaching some brothers on the back end that have kind of jumped a little bit in popularity, is if you can walk with crowds and keep your virtue, if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch. Like if you stop and you think about it, so it's like, can you deal with the crowds and deal with the celebrities, but still keep your normal? It's all about that whole notion
be authentic to yourself. I love that.
Well, not even authentic to yourself. It's that piece. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah. I was also about to say that the set point, that over time, that's kind of what resiliency is, right? Like that, like we had this line, and then you have a day, but you bounce right back to that line, or you have a good day, and then you bounce back to that line. And overall, I as I've kind of like thought about gratitude and journaled every day, I realized that over the ebbs and flows, that my natural set point has gotten higher and higher, in a sense that I do have some, this pandemic has been mad news all the time, but I felt like this has been like mentally probably the best I felt in a while, even pre-pandemic, because of just, I don't know, I just feel like I think over time training my set point to be higher, to look for things to be grateful for, or to, something bad happens, I'm like, like some people are like, oh, you didn't get like I joke about the projections for TED Talks and stuff, right? You know how many times I've applied to this, but now it's almost like, I keep trying. It's like it almost I'm still going to try. And I told to someone else, like, give me about 2 seconds to be. I want to feel upset, but only for about 2 minutes or so. Like, allow me to be upset, and then I'll move on. And I think that's my natural set point, is getting better at somewhat like bring me back to my set point of feeling bad or feeling whatever, but then coming back to calm, or feeling really joyful, which is good too, but coming back to calm. And not the calm, because also I need to be like, nothing is good forever, nothing's bad forever.
Yeah. Both of you have sons, right? Mike, you have a boy. You have a boy.
Yeah, I have a son and a daughter.
And I know you have a boy. You have two. And I think that I have a 14-year-old, right? And he's at that age where, he's emotional, hormones, puberty, all that stuff. And, I can think of so many moments where, so many days, times where he'll let a moment, like he'll let like something like impact everything. Right.
Yep.
And probably the hardest, parenting that I've done is like trying to, one, on my end, be patient with his attitude, right? Like let him go through his whole, you know what I'm saying? And how we were trained. Like, I don't know where y'all from, but my parents are Caribbean, and like we don't play no, you a child. You're supposed to, you're supposed to be seen, not heard, right? So in my mind, I'm like, boy. But the counselor in me knows like, all right, you just got to go through your cycle. But then I'm also trying to teach him different, right? I'm trying to let him go through the whole range of the highs and the lows, give him the time and space to do that, and then come and, figure out the moment to say, all right, now what just happened? Right? Like talk me through that. What were you feeling? Like, how can we now let this go? He's an athlete, right? Like he plays baseball. He plays sports that are steeped in failure, right? Baseball is just a game of managing failure. And you can't let this moment impact you here. And then now you miss the ball in center field, right? And so that has been, and I'm saying all that to say that is like the conversation that I had with myself. Like, that's like, how am I in these moments allowing myself, whatever it is, quarantine has been a perfect, litmus test, like a petri dish of how do I handle the most effed up situations?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't see our family. We can't do this. We can't go out to eat. We stuck in the house. Everybody's on everybody. Like, okay, how can I go through the motions of feeling what I feel, right? And still being a decent person to my family. You know what I'm saying? And that is and teaching that to my son, or being an example of that to my kid, has helped to reinforce that within me, like for my own personal journey. You know what I'm saying?
That's deep. If you said that, and I think about the concept of emotions, and we have to understand how to manage them, but we can't allow them to control us, right? I always say emotions are like kids. They're great to have, but it's not good to let them run the show. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so to your point, I think what you're doing is beautiful with your son. And that's something that we all need to work on, because again, like you mentioned, we're ground zero. Generations before us, as dudes, we didn't learn how to deal with emotions. We were just like, you either go get a bottle and drink something, or you go and go punch something, or go beat something up, or that was it. Like, you a dude. That's what you're supposed to do. You're a knuckle dragon, whatever. You ain't got no emotions. You ain't supposed to cry, right? Like, that's what you're supposed to do. So I think it's important to teach, especially us, and I think that really leads to the notion of protecting our peace, is being able to manage our emotions, to know that when we're off, when we're not at our center, if we're too high or too low, and if we need help, we got the tools in our tool belt to be able to go and get those things, or tighten things up to get back to where it is we're supposed to be. But to your point, is recognizing your normal, recognizing your peace, knowing what that is, but then also having the resources, the tools, and the wherewithal to be able to get back there should we get off. But we got to know what it is to know that whether or not we're on or off or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So true, man.
Oh no, we can keep on going. We might have to do a part 2. As you can see, I'm throwing all your both of your gentlemen's links, your podcast, in the chat, obviously for the listeners. We're not going to do shot for shot.
I wore this shirt just for Mike. I forgot that this whole time I had this shirt on. Not even. I want to make sure you see it.
You know what? This the only time I didn't have a frat shirt on, and y'all. So I'm just gonna do the rest of the interview like this.
Dang, I've been covering up this shirt this whole time, man. Come on.
That was very kind of you, good brother. I don't know. So, I mean, as I throw these links in the chat, maybe let's wrap up. Where can the listeners shout outs and plugs for both of you gentlemen? As I normally end most of my episodes, why don't we do our shout outs and plugs? And I'm throwing all the ways that people can find you too in the chat.
Yes, sir. I'll jump in. What is my Twitter name? I think it's 5 Mics. I change it every other week, but website is theideaofmanhood.com or ideaofmanhood.com. I still have my podcast going. I don't know if you've seen, Mike, I've been doing these conversations, like long form conversations called Shifting Narrative. And I did one with a good friend from college, Marilyn Bibbs Freeman. She's a PhD doctor, epidemiologist. She does she studies viruses. We had an awesome talk about about COVID and the impact of it, and it was phenomenal, and it got thousands of views, like just off the humble, like just like, hey, we should talk. So shifting narrative is what I'm doing. I'm still running the weekly men's group. Shout out to the men's group if you're watching. And we meet every Wednesday online, and we just talk about this is like our conversation. Like it's literally like a similar format like this, just shooting the breeze. And yeah, man, I'm that's what I'm doing, man. Hope y'all could keep this conversation going. Phil, thank you for allowing us to sharing your platform with us. Always very inspiring to talk with you and to talk with Mike, man.
Well, yeah, man, I definitely, first shout out to Phil for bringing us together again, two mics in the field. I can dig it, man. Always game for another round, man. You brothers are, even though y'all are alphas, y'all all right with me.
Especially because we're alphas.
Oh, even though, yeah. But yeah, man. So y'all, anybody can follow me. Follow Black Fathers Now, Instagram, Facebook. The podcast is Black Fathers Now, currently available anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can visit blackfathersnow.com. Got some pretty dope resources out there, apparel. Actually, for anybody out there that is a to-be father, I have a new course that just launched.
Saw that, Mike. Yeah, that's so dope, man. That's
appreciate
so dope.
it, man. It's called Jumpstart Fatherhood. And so pretty much it's for anybody out there who's about to be a father for the first time. And, definitely check it out, man. And what do you say? Somebody commented, feels out for that V-neck. You're talking about Phil. I love it. But yeah, definitely, visit blackfathersnow.com and Black Fathers Now on any of the social media platforms. Follow, holler at me. And again, if you go to the website and you are a to-be father, Jumpstart Fatherhood is a great investment for you. It's really gonna
dope, man.
Equip you with what you need so you can step into fatherhood with courage and confidence. So, but Phil, brother, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for inviting us on, man. I always love chopping it up with my man Mike and my man Phil. Yes,
the deep V.
Yes,
the deep V. I think I'm gonna just launch a brand. So I know that you have shirts, but I want the one that says Black Fathers Now, but the black starts like right here at the
hold on. I got a question. So
be right in the belly. Black Fathers Now, but under the V. You know what I'm saying?
Hold on. Question. What color is the shirt you're wearing, Phil?
It's got green in it. You see the green?
I don't see green. I see what? Green. Isn't that purple and gold?
It's some green.
In that purple and gold, I don't see any green. Green's under your underarm, but everywhere else that has been on this camera, I was just like, wow, Phil is trying to
I'm gonna make some more
homage.
I noticed that. I was gonna let it slide.
Purple and gold. I'm like, you doing my work for me there, brother.
I need to make another tie dye. I might do some other colors, like.
Oh, so you actually made a purple and gold one? Wow.
They didn't have that much colors. I had the green. They didn't have that many greens.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love it.
Your V-neck is out the frame. Your V-neck don't even fit.
V-neck's out of the frame. That needs to be like your screen name. V-neck out the frame.
Out the frame. That is wow.
I think I really just want to get a bunch of V-necks, man. I'm about to bring that, just all the cookouts. Mike, when I go to Jane, you're really gonna just get a normal shirt and just pull it down, make it a custom V-neck.
Just rip that joint.
But gentlemen, this has been great. We probably could have an old episode on V-necks, but will that be next time? V-neck special. But all their links in the chat. I'll always end that. While we have not met, these two brothers have inspired me, and definitely when we have conversations, I knew my 1-2. I texted him immediately and said we got to get on the episode. And so I don't know. We should probably make this more often than not. But I just know that. I'm going to do a little ageism that I look up to you two guys as older brothers, and just give me guidance. And I really listen. I was trying to be more listening than talking, which is hard for me, if you know that. But y'all really share some great insight. And I just really appreciate both of y'all, one, sharing what y'all need to share, and two, just providing guidance and spaces. And I know, Mike Andrews, you create a space for other men. I know that's been greatly appreciated. And so I want to do similar things with this platform, this podcast, and just in general. So I don't know. That's just a plug to say thank you so much, both of you, for being great guys. And, I really appreciate it. Please follow both of them. I ain't gonna lie. Mike Dorsey should be my podcast agent, because like 3 of my upcoming guests have been guests on his podcast.
That's so dope.
He connect me with them, and we have dope conversations. I'm like, dang, Mike got some good people that I could talk to. So it's just insulated that great people gravitate to good people, even if they're accused. But
I also want to get. I know we get.
I'm just joking, but I know you know my dad's one, so I can't even say.
I know.
That.
I'm about to say
for real.
My dad said where I went wrong. I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know.
But
I was gonna say, Phil, I got a joke for you, but first, a serious thing for Mike. Man, Mike, you are the constant. Your consistency is literally has kept me going in times where I was like, I don't want to do this no more. I'm going to put the mic down. And your consistency is phenomenal. Like, and I wanted to say that before we were on the air just to you, but I want everybody to know, like, I see your messages come in. I'm like, yo, that's so dope. Like he keeps going, and you double down on your the Black Fathers class. I was like, yo, that is such a dope idea. So just congratulations there. And then Phil, I wanted to ask you, are you a coach? Why is your voice so raspy? Like, what are you always yelling? Like, what's your problem?
Someone said that.
You smoking Newports, man? What's wrong with
Newports? Yeah. Okay. I ain't gonna lie. I do yell a lot, and too. A little girl in my neighborhood was like, "Did you lose your voice?" I'm like, "No, that's my normal voice." I literally sound like someone chopped me in my throat.
Are you a singer? Like, do you sing? No, sometimes the singers have that raspy voice. Like, I feel like on the low, you might be a singer.
I think I drink like a bourbon and burn my throat. I don't know. I've always sounded like I got chopped in the throat. For someone that likes to talk a lot. Just call me Rasp. That's my new name, Raspy.
Raspy V. That's your name. Raspy.
Lou Rawls.
Raspy V.
Raspy V. I'm gonna start singing blues. But ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great episode. I'm gonna go cry myself in the corner. I appreciate everybody for joining me tonight and joining us tonight. And please, Phil, where'd you get the PDF of degrees? And I'll get fried, but thank you so much for joining us, and we're out.